Good day, everyone. Mark Wolf with Emergency Reporting here for Virtual Thursday, our 17th edition of Virtual Thursday on October 4th, 2018. I want to welcome everybody and give a shout out to a few folks I recognized on the attendee list. And if I miss somebody that's on there, I apologize for that. I just looked at it a few moments ago. I saw Greg Ballman is with us from out in Ripon, California. Todd Russell. I think it's still in the morning where you are, Todd. Jim Wheeler from up in Independence, Ohio, and Jeffrey Hilvers from down in Trotwood, Ohio are online with us today. So greetings to you folks and everybody else with us today. Today, what we're going to do here is review some of our updated features that we have in the system. Some of these you may be familiar with, and a few other ones are new, or maybe you're not familiar with them. Again, my name is Mark Wolf. I'll be the main presenter today, and I also have online with me one of our new regional trainers, Michael Fabian, and he is hiding in the background, keeping an eye on our question and answer board for us today. Thanks for stepping in to do that, Michael. Want to remind everybody of our training opportunities coming up. Again, our virtual Thursdays, they're free. First and third Thursdays, 1100 hours Pacific time. We do provide online training in 3-hour blocks. We can customize those to meet your needs. We also provide on-site training where one of our trainers can come to your department and provide customized training for you. We usually do that in either 2, 3, or 4-day blocks. It's your choice. For those two items there, if you would email training@emergencyreporting.com, you can initiate that conversation with Nicole, who'll get you hooked up with a quote and some dates for that. The last thing is our regional training academies that we're holding. We actually have a crew out in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma right now at our last regional training academy for 2018. We have some on the books for next year. The full schedule will be released at some point in time, but I am happy to tell you that our next regional training will be down in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina in February 2019. Tickets for that are not on sale yet. They will be, and we'll put an announcement out on your login pages most frequently where you'll see that. And you can look into that to see if you want to come and visit us down in Myrtle Beach next February. So without further ado, we're going to close that out, and we're going to jump right into this. And again, if you have some questions as we're going through the presentation today, in your chat window down there in your control panel, if you want to take a look at that. And I tell you what, I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen. So I apologize for that, and I will get that fixed up in our recording of this presentation. So now you should be viewing my my homepage, or dashboard as we're now calling it. And the first thing we're going to talk about is our fresh new look. We are updating the system, and that includes a new look, some new colors. Most of the functionality of the system will be the same until we get into that specific module to update it for any new and latest and greatest functionality. A couple of things I'll mention to you is on the module stack, we do have the arrows over here in the upper left-hand corner that you can select and minimize the modules. The buttons are still available to you. You can navigate quite easily, but you can just see the icons or select back and it'll toggle back out, and you can see the actual title of the module down through there. Some of the modules have the updated look already. The first is the home page. Next is the message center. Then down in the library. So one of the things that you'll notice is some of the button placement at the top of the page has changed to this far right corner over here instead of where you're typically looking for it. So you'll see that consistently throughout the updated modules. The calendar module, we'll jump in here and you can see in this as well, the download to the calendar add item are over here on the right, where for the last at least 6 or 8 years for me, they've been over here on the left side of that. The daily roster, where the functionality of the daily roster hasn't been updated yet, the initial page that you get into and the add new roster button has been relocated over here on the right. The next one we're going to look at down here is the payroll module. So to create a new payroll report, that button again has been moved over to the right. Then we've updated demographics and my profile. My profile's got a pretty much of a new look. And we finally got the demographics there. Let me go down to my profile. So this is looks a little bit different. You've got a few things here, and one of the things that we're going to look at in a little bit is the training. This has been added to my profile and the training module. We're going to review that here in a while. And then the last thing we're going to look at is the new look in analytics. And my favorite is the safety analytics, which I can select here. All the functionality here is the same. We just have the new look, and some of the controls and buttons may have been moved just a little bit for you. There's more to come as the modules are updated and they look into these things to get us squared away with this. And it's all in the background information. And one of the benefits for all of our users out there of the programming behind all of this is that it allows us to program things a little bit quicker and easier. So we're going to see an increased tempo of new features and some of the bugs in the system. And all computer systems have bugs in them, but we'll have a streamlined process and ability to resolve those a little bit quicker in the future. So one of the items that we're rolling out, actually it happened yesterday, depending on where you are, what time of day it was. Where I live, it was about 8 p.m. last night or so, and that's with our day book down at the bottom of the page. A couple things that we added to that, and this are frequent requests from a lot of departments. The first, as you can see, we now have a select stations button on the daily log. And for this, we can go in and select one or more of our stations, select save, and you will see those daily log entries from that group of stations that you selected. Now, there's one thing that quickly popped up on this we heard quite a bit about already today, is that if we navigate off of this page and come back to it, there's a slight bug in it where all the data that we're trying to look at here with the stations I selected won't be viewed. I have to go back and select that select stations button and then save it. That is a bug that we're working on. We hope to have that resolved very, very soon. So what I did today was went in and put in some entries, and these ones at the colors at the bottom, that's another new feature that we rolled out today. But I did that as each one of these daily log entries is from a different station. And you may happen to notice actually that the details over here on the log details list, the station assignment for that particular item is currently missing. And that's another bug that we're looking at, trying to get that in and resolved as quickly as possible. So Jeffrey Hilvers jumped right on here and said, did you say that should be able to use the daily log entries? Yeah, the functionality is still there. You can still put data into it. Where we are having, I understand, a little bit of a problem with in some agencies of the automatic logging of your activities like training records and responses don't seem to be populated everywhere. It's kind of a random thing right now, and our support team and devs are looking into that. So hopefully, Jeffrey, that answered your question there. So that's one of the things that we've had, again, it's not a real big issue for most departments that have one or two stations to be able to select a group of stations. But if you have a larger department, then you can select the group of stations that you want to see on your daily log down here by making that selection and save. So Jeff is saying it doesn't show up on my end yet with the select stations. That should be viewable there, Jeff. So let's tell you what, if you want to contact me after we're done, then we'll get back to this. Okay, now he says he sees it online. All right, perfect. So that was the first update that we had to talk about. The second is these colors that we're highlighting these entries for. And that's going to work the same way. Now, if it's an automatic addition to your daily log and when it comes in, it's still going to be the white background color. But when you manually add a daily log entry, if you want to go in and select your daily log activity code and your start time, and I'll just say that we're out doing some hydrant work here, and let's say we're going to be out till 1500 on this. Now in the highlight field down here, I have the ability to select either yellow, blue, green, or red. So we'll just select blue one for this since it's got to do with water and add it to the log. And you see that entry up here at the top. When we navigate over them, it still turns the green color. And then if we're going to, just a reminder to delete them if you have permission to do so. When you navigate and hover your mouse over the trash can, it's going to turn that orange color, and then you would have the ability to delete them. Now, just remember, when you delete a daily log entry, that data is not recoverable. It doesn't get archived. That's a hard delete. So that's one thing we wanted to go over with you today, is that those a couple features, and we know there's a couple bugs in there, and we are working very diligently hard to get those corrected, and we should get that done fairly soon. Another feature, and it's really more to do with the background of the system and how it's operating, is that you've probably noticed is when you select log out now and you do log out, you're going to come to the log out page, and then to log back in directly from here, you'll select that login button, and then you'll have to put your password in, username and password in again. In the past, you would be directed to the login page after you logged out. So now, just to remind everybody, that is a feature that we put in the background that's working. It's got to do with how the system operates in that. So hi, Chief Ayers, I see you're on board with this today, and he wants to know if can we preset activity color. And not to my knowledge, Chief, those have to be set down here individually when you do your daily log entry. Let me go back and show all of them here. And now it's not letting me select the stations for some reason. Maybe they're out in the background there doing some work on that. And I can see, hi Jim, I see you put a note in here too. He wants to second a preset activity color request. Well, I can tell you that's a great idea, and I understand and would agree with you. And I would recommend that one of you or both of you get together and maybe put that in a suggestive feature, and our dev team can take a look at it. So what you're saying is basically that you would like to preset an activity color with an activity code. So if I'm selecting a specific activity code, like for hydrant work, it always comes up blue. And I buy that, and I think it's a great idea. I'll direct you there for right now, and I'll write a note down about that and see if we can get that pushed over to our dev team. All right, a couple things we want to talk about back in the admin module. And let's go back here. The first thing we want to talk about is, you may have seen on the exports section of the admin module that you now do have the ability to submit your NIFRS data directly to the NFPA. So if we click that link in that section, it's going to take us to this page. And this discusses the problem and gives you some information on this. I'll just recommend that you take a look at that yourself if you're interested in this. Basically, there are some inconsistent data silos to the states, then to the federal government, and then on to the NFPA. There was a huge delay in getting access to that data by the NFPA. And then it was basically, they feel, being underutilized. And you can take a look at the rest of this data on this page and review that pretty thoroughly. If you think you want to do this, and I think it's really a great idea, all you have to do is check that box on this page. I agree to export your data to NFPA when you do your NIFRS submissions, and push save down here at the bottom of the page. And that's all you have to do. And then when you do an export, it automatically goes to the NFPA. There's no extra work on your part except for reading that information, agreeing to do it, and saving that page. So when you do your export and you select that export button down here, it'll automatically send it to the NFPA if you've enabled that. Now, if you do enable it and you decided you want to opt back out, you can do that. There's a selection on that page that you'll be able to make to terminate doing that with them. Okay, so let's move on to something that you'll find in your apparatus list. One thing that has been an update, and this has got directly to do with the NEMSIS 3 demographics. In any vehicle, if we select and decide that we want to put in a VIN number, and you can see this one in here probably isn't correct with even looking at all those numbers. A VIN number has to be 17 characters. So we've updated that field that if you put data in that field for the VIN number, it has to be 17 characters. And when we try to save it, we'll see that it will tell us we can't do that. So I had 12 characters in there. Yes.
I was going to say, while you were typing that in real quick, we had a question if the NIFRS data would still go to the state if you elected that option. As long as that email address is in to export to your state, I believe that'll still go.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, John, that has no effect. If you decide to send that data onto the NFPA, it has no effect on how you're submitting your data to NIFRS. It's the same exact procedure, what you've been doing in the past. Doesn't affect it at all. It's just in addition to sending it out to NIFRS, or in some cases, like here in Ohio, it goes to somebody in the local fire department. They have to upload it, and there's a few states that may have to do that. That process will remain the same. There's no changes in that whatsoever. It's just in addition to sending it out, it will send it to NFPA. All right, okay. Andrew Puckett is saying, when will that feature go live? And what Andrew, if you can type in there, is that with the NFPA submission of your NIFRS data? If you can please answer that real quick. Okay, yeah, that should be under your exports down here. If we have an issue with that, I'll try to look that up. If you can type in there, send me a message of what your AID, your account identification number, and your agency name. Just put that in the chat thing. I can take a look at that after we get done here today and see what's going on with that. Okay, it's not in your admin section. Now, Andrew, are you in a DOD account? Let me ask you that as well. That may be okay. Okay, type in your AID and your agency name in that and ship it to me, and I will take a look at that after we're done here today. Okay. We're going to jump down to, if you can see on this page here, the security section, roles and permissions. Now, in many of your accounts, especially if you've got an account that was activated before about August of this year, you're probably in what we call our legacy roles and permissions. And what I'm meaning by that, let me jump into personnel list. So we give you a really good description of this. And go in here to this login. In security, you probably have all the little radio buttons down in this section, right down here under their login information. That means you're in a legacy role, security. We are switching to the roles and permissions system. Now, that's going to happen in the fourth quarter of 2018. So within the next few months, it's going to happen. Every account is going to be switched to that. The exact date of that has not been determined yet, but you can look for that soon. So what you'll do is when we change your agency, it will change it into, let me go back to rules and permissions. Any settings in your agency, when you're rolled over into this, will come up with the auto-generated roles and permissions. On this page, you'll have a list of those, and they may be one or two or three, and there may be quite a number of them, depending on every different variation set up in your roles and permissions will come up on this list. So your general user, unless you change them, will not notice anything on this. But what we have in here is the ability to set permissions more granular than we had before. Previously under legacy, you've got basically no access, read only, in some modules, limited access, and then full access. In this system, you can do quite a different scenario here. If we go into this particular role, it was set up for some testing. And when this permissions button highlights, we'll select it. In some of the modules, we have some more than one setting, and you can individually set that for this particular role and permission. And I'll get to your question, Todd, in just a moment when we get to take a look at this, because I want to show you something specific that we've done just within the last couple weeks in here. So now that we're in here on the page, and this is the role, that's what we're calling it, and this is just for a test. Now under permissions, you can see for like the admin module, for example, there's 3 items underneath here. Daybook, there's 4. For hydrants, there's 10 items. So if we take a look at those individually, so we'll be able to specifically select what they can and can't do. So for this rule, if we want to say they cannot add hydrants, we'll say no. If we want them to not be able to delete flow tests, this is what we're talking about in the granularity that we can do. So mainly we want to restrict a lot of times what people can delete, but not what they can enter into the system. So that's what we mean with granularity. Now, Todd has put a question on here. When will the new roles and permissions be modified to more granular than it is right now? That's a great question, Todd. I want to point out something to you. If I scroll on down here to the occupancy module, for example, one of the things that we have just done with the deploy that went out yesterday, see where we have the inspector, and right below that we have modify inspection forms. That was split out as a separate granular role and permission, so that if we say no access, then that person cannot, it's assigned to this role and permission, now modify an inspection form. So what we've been told, Todd, and everyone else out there with us, is that our product owners are going to start working on that in 2019. And there's going to be an expectation set of granular roles and permissions for each module that they're responsible for per quarter over the year next year. So Todd, that's when you're going to see that expand more, is starting in 2019. And I don't have an exact time on you because it really depends on what falls into their schedule and other items that may come up for scheduling of their dev time. So hopefully that answers your question. And everybody else out there, just be ready for that. And when the process is going to be, when we go to roles and permissions, is that they're going to roll out and march through the account state by state, and they'll do a batch per state every day. And they're going to give you that information. They'll probably be posted on the top of your individual home pages in our news and announcements panel. We have the capability of limiting messages per estate into each one of those. So that's what you'll be notified of that. And there'll be probably some marketing items going on about that as well. So that's roles and permissions. Be looking for that. And we have been changing accounts. We have close to 600 accounts now, I believe, switched over to roles and permissions. Some of them are beta testers, and we've had a lot of them that have been participating in our regional trainings that have been switched at that particular point in time. Okay, the next thing we're going to roll over to and talk about is in the maintenance module, and everybody hopefully knows about this already. You'll notice at the top of your page when you go into maintenance module is that you now have a truck check button at the top of the page. I'm going to go ahead and select that, and hopefully we get to that and it populates really quickly here. We're not going to spend a lot of time talking about truck checks, but just to advise everybody that that is active for all accounts now across the board. There are several knowledge base articles out on the support page in the knowledge base, and virtual Thursday videos on how truck checks work. And I'm going to refer you to go there for more information. If you have not been looking at truck checks and plan on doing it, please do so. It comes with every account. The limitations that we'll mention are that in truck checks, you're limited to 2 checklist per vehicle and 50 items per checklist. And you can custom build your own checklist for your agency. Okay, so Stephen Fay has asked a great question, and I'll address that right now. For in roles and permissions, yes, what we can do, what he's asking is it just that we can set individual permissions. Instead of setting it for each person, we'll be able to classify people and put them in a group of that role, and that is exactly correct. So let me get back there and show you that real quick. So under rules and permissions, hopefully we get to it more quicker than later here. Some of the bugs that happened to us seems to have slowed down some of the grids from populating. So we'll have to kind of be patient with it here. Let me show you, Stephen, and everybody else what we mean by this. And that's a great question. I should have probably even showed you that. So when we set up a role, let's say we have a role for firefighters, and this is the permissions that we want them to be able to do this and not do that. How does it working here to assign people to that group, and I'll show you real quick when we get this to populate up. It's a pretty simple process. And you can, if you have, let's say, a firefighter that needs all the rules and permissions that a firefighter needs. However, they have extra duties for, let's say, maintenance or in keeping some hydrant records. You can create a role based off of that firefighter's role and then add or delete specific permissions for that individual and then just assign them to that role as well. So as you can see, Stephen, for these different roles and permissions here, I've got my limited group here. I've got 8 personnel assigned into it, 54 into this main training group of personnel. When I select this people icon right here in that button, you'll see I'll have a list of everybody that's assigned to this role and everybody else on the agency, and I can move them on these lists. So Stephen is asking again, if 2 people have the same role, can you still add a single user override to give one user an additional feature? No, you would have to set up a whole different role for that other individual. And what you typically see is a group of them for, like, in a smaller department anyway, for a firefighter, maybe lieutenant, most of those officers or people would be in that group, but you may have one that's, this role is for firefighters plus full permissions and hydrants or whatever their particular role may be. So here's my list in this particular role, and there's quite a number of them in the list here. You can see these little minus signs next to them. I can remove them from the list right here, or I can, more importantly, add somebody. So I've got this user down here called Jesse Bates. You can see right here, if I click that plus sign button, boom, and that just put him up on the list, and he'll show all the way down here at the bottom. So we've just added him that quickly to that particular role. So basically, yes, you are setting them up by groups, and you can assign them here and the different roles and permissions. And let's say Jesse was assigned to a different role someplace else out there, and we moved him to a different role. It's automatically going to take him off of that role and put him in the new role as well. And we're actually going to do a full Virtual Thursday training on this right before we start rolling this out. So be aware of that, and we can have more information at that particular time. So that's that. I hope I answered your questions. And we're going to back up to John, who asked a question about truck checks. So if you change your truck check forms in ER, will it carry over to Halligan? And so I assume, John, that you have the premier version of Halligan. And my answer is I believe so. And that's as far as I know. I am not too experienced in the premier version of Halligan, although I've seen it and played around with it a little bit. I think that's the answer I need to tell you, is I'm pretty sure that it does, because they're tied together in here. And if you have the premier version, you have to do a couple different setup steps to get that all to work properly and automatically throw in your work orders and so forth. So hopefully I answered your question, John. Let's see. Another new feature we are going to jump into in the occupancy module. We're going to jump over there real quick. There's one change that just happened, and this was really driven by the people that use permits, the permitting in the occupancy module. One of the factors or features that we have here, let me go to permit, and we're having a little bit of issues with this page loading, which we've been having system-wide here, but okay, here's our permits. So what I'm talking about here is I'm gonna get to your question in just a moment. We have a permit for this Arby's that's active right here, and what I'm going to do is actually we're going to put the one up above it, this fireworks permit at the Asian buffet. That's kind of interesting, but anyway, on all of you're used to having the expiration date and time of permits is a required field, and we know, and we've heard this quite often, that there are some permits that don't expire. Specifically in my jurisdiction, it was a certificate of occupancy permit that once you're granted that, it doesn't expire unless the occupancy in a building changes. So we had to force an answer in here in data that maybe wasn't correct. So what you can do now for this, I'm going to go up here and create a duplicate of that page and go to settings. And if you go to occupancy settings, field settings, you'll now see that you have a checkbox down here on this page that you can require, and it should be by default be checkmarked in all accounts. But now you can remove that check mark, and when you do, and save this page, so you can see I've removed it from the page right here. I'm going to save this. Hopefully this will do this pretty quickly for us. And let's go back over here. Hopefully that will be doing that real quick. I'm going to refresh this page while that's saving, and we're going to continue. And now you can see, since I changed that checkbox, now my expiration date and time for a permit is no longer required. Now that is across all permits you have. So if you do have a expiration date that you do require on a permit, you're going to have to make sure your folks are entering that data. You can't customize that requirement per permit form. It is for all your permit forms. Yes or no, is that required? Okay, so now we're going to get to Brad, your question: do completed truck checks show up in the daily log? That's another excellent question. I am going to jump back into the admin module. First of all, we're going to say that your truck checks, when you do complete them, it does put an entry into your maintenance record for that vehicle as a routine inspection. And if on your admin page under default activity codes, if you have this bottom selection, default maintenance completed activity codes set to a activity code such as maintenance complete, then the answer is yes, it will put a entry onto your daily log for the truck checks. Now, the only issue with that I know of is that typically in my department anyway, we wanted to know how much time was spent doing the truck checks. When you use the system of automatically putting that entry in for the completion of maintenance work orders, it puts a start time on it, but not the end time. So you'd have to manually go in and put an end time on that daily log entry. So hopefully that answers your question, Brad. And we're going to jump on to the next item. Out of occupancy, we're going to go to the training module. This is a new feature. This feature request was pushed through with some assistance and so forth from the U.S. Army. They have some very, very strict regulations concerning training. So everybody has this now, and this was just released a couple weeks ago. So under settings in the training module, you have a new additional setting under the general settings tab over here on the right. It is at the bottom. And what this is one that requires student verification. So when you implement that, if you checkbox that, there's a couple things that's going to happen. First and foremost, what you'll see is in your personnel's training will be displayed now in my profile. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out of this account and log into a different one to demo this for you. And when we jump in here, I set this account up for the demo purposes here for the training. And we're going to come down here to my profile. So when you enable the training verification, what's going to happen is in everybody's my profile module, you're now going to see this area down here where it says training class verification. And when we select that, you'll see the training classes that need to be verified will load on this page. And with our system, what it's going to do is go out and look for any training class that you're attached to. When you have that red exclamation point, it means you have one or more training sessions that need to be verified. And you're going to get a list populate right here, and you'll be able to check mark which classes you want to verify, and then select that verify classes button, put your password in, and then the system will record that for you. And we're going to show you a couple data output sides of this too. So I'm going to select those two. I want to verify my classes, put my password in and submit it. and you will see those disappear off the page here momentarily. Now, one of the things that we'll see is the output side of this. I'm going to duplicate my screen here and go to training. One of the places that we see this information now is if we go to a training record, and on the people page, if you've enabled that, you'll have a new column right here, and that's a student verified column. So you can see here, I've got that class was verified by that individual, and the rest of these, and most of them probably are not verified on here. So that's one place that you can see this information to see if they verified the class. And basically what they're saying is, yes, I did attend that training. Now, another place that you will see that is on a report that's brand new, came out today. And that report number is 1762. And I'm going to go directly to it. And you'll see we've got a bunch of parameters here, but we're going to select for the year, and we're going to just filter this by, we only want to see the ones that are not verified here. And we're going to see a lot here because this account hasn't had a lot of this cleanup work done to it. So as that thing's spinning there, and it's going to produce this report for us, as you can see, I've got it, it's broken down by station and individuals assigned to that station, and the date, time, and a class category, and the name of the class. And it'll say not verified. Now, if we wouldn't have filtered it, it would say either verified or not verified on this list. So we can see on this, there's quite a few, and I didn't filter this out for anything at all other than that verified and not verified field here. So we can keep tabs on our folks if they're actually doing this and meeting those requirements. So that's the output side of this, so we can see in the training record on the people page and report 1762, which is a brand new report. This is probably your first view of this report on that. So that's that one. Now what we're going to do is we're going to log out of this particular user and log back in. To go and show you another thing that we've added into the incident module. A couple things, actually. So if we go to incidents, one of the big questions we get quite often is if we're running mutual aid, we need some numbers of our mutual aid personnel, people that come in to help us. So we've added a feature here that will give us a hand here with this, if I can get into this call. And I have to give that just a moment here. So here we go. So I need to unlock this call to show this for you. And I'm going to go to the basic 4 page. Now this only works, I want to point this out, this only works for agency friends that you have set up that they're sharing their incident data with you. And when that happens, and you note this report as mutual aid given or received, excuse me, that you're going to see their mutual aid apparatus populate up on the bottom of the page. Now, what was added to this is this column right here, number of people. So we have 4 personnel on that engine that came in to help us mutual aid. And that, again, is tied to agency friends data. They have to be an agency friend set up to have this pull in automatically. So you can look at your mutual aid calls, come in here and take a look at this. They don't display on the actual incident report. It's this page only, although there's a couple reports that we can show you that also displays this data. So we're going to go in here and we're going to look at specifically report 1683. And this is one of our interagency reports. So interagency 911 geospatial response summary. What I need to do actually is go back in, and I have to lock up that, review that call so that we can look at this data. I know this particular report, the report has to be reviewed. Okay, Greg Lopez. Hi, Greg, out there in Arizona. Hope everything's well with you down there. What it'll do is when you link up your calls, it will bring that data in as long as they've initiated their incident report, and you can use agency friends on, let me not review this. I want to show you this fully. On Basic Info 5, if they have initiated the mutual aid, like not you responding to them, you're responding, they're responding to you, and they put it in here and link up the calls on their end, it will display on Basic Info 4. So that should tie back into their report. So as long as you can link the calls up, it should work. Then let's see. Agency friends in Basic 4. How does ER know what calls are the same? Now that is set up in a Basic Info 5. So let me show you how that works in just a moment. Okay, I want to first show you this report. So I've got this report authorized. I'm going to go back to the reports module. Okay, and Tyler's asking, how do you link the calls in ER? I'll show you in just a moment. Let's go to report 1683. And I want to do this so I can show you this data. And there's only one call in here, maybe two, that's going to display. We're going to do for the month of October and create the report. And you'll see what we have here now is on this particular call, we have, here's the apparatus from this account at the Great Wolfman Fire Department. And here is that mutual aid response down here. And both of these have the personnel listed right down here. So you still may need to do a little bit of math. But on this particular call, I had 8 personnel from the home agency and 4 from the mutual aid agency. And it has to be agency friends to do that. The other report that this information can display on is report 1292. You go there, we're going to basically run this report again for the month of October. And this is, both of these reports are interagency reports, which means it's in that the data sharing with agency friends. So when we pull this report up, on this particular report, the 1292 report, you need to roll down here to the second page, and you can see that we've got the same call right up here at the same date and time. And we've got 8 personnel and then 4 personnel here. This call later on down here is a completely different call, different date and time. Okay, so how do we link in the calls in ER? Let me switch to this account. I am going to log out of the one I'm in currently here, and we're going to get into, I hope I saved this in here. You know what? I don't think I did. So let me go back into my training account here. You have to pardon me for this. I did not save that other account that I used for that in my password saver down here. So anyway, we're going to take this call on the top of the page here, and we're going to mark this thing in Basic Info 1 as a mutual aid given call or automatic aid given. Either one of those initiates some information on Basic Info 5. Once we save this, we're going to go to Basic Info 5, and we're going to have this box right here pop up. And this is NIFR's required data. FDID number, their state, and their incident number. Now, since I have agency friends set up with this account, I'm going to have this list button right here, and this is for incident data. I would select this button, and if they've got any calls about the same date and time as mine, they're going to pop up on this list. Then all I have to do is say, oh yeah, it was that call is when we went to, and let's say we went over to Troy, and now it's going to bring that data in. Now, once we do that, and we'll save this page on Basic Info 4. Once we get our information here, we should be able to see that other response information below our apparatus on this page. So Tyler, this only will work on the NIFRS accounts. No, I think it works in any account, Tyler, as long as you have them set up as an agency friend. That's the big key to that. In this particular call that I pulled in here, that incident report may not be at the stage where I can pull that data in through that, but that's how we would do that, and to display it right on the page here on Basic Info 4 with that response times. Okay, okay, yeah. So on NEPSIS account only. Okay, you do not have the aid give box, so yeah, that won't work for you if you're on NEPSIS account only. Okay, Steven says, can you show us how agency friends set up? Absolutely, I can. So what we're going to do is we're going to point you to the admin module. And down here in the admin module, you have a panel and section for agency friends. There's two lines here always. Agencies that can access our data. We select that, and you'll see in this particular account, we've got a lot of them down here. So we were going to add a new agency, and remember, they have to have a ER account to work. Add new agency. You'll type in the name, whatever you want to type in here so you know who it is. This is tied together with either the FDID number or if they're an EMS only account with the EMS ID number. You have to know that. You might have to give them a call to find out what it is. And once you type that in here, you've got 5 different modules that Agency Friends works in. 4 of these, apparatus, hydrants, incidents, and personnel, work, and it pulls data out and gets displayed only in the reports module. So when you have an agency friend set up and you give them access, so if I give them access to my apparatus, there are some reports in the reports module that will pull that data, and I'll give you the key on how to pull those reports up in just a moment. The other benefit is in incidents, you can link the calls together automatically for that data required by NIFRS when you give them read-only access into incidents. And in the occupancy module, you can allow for occupancy inspection forms. So your inspection forms can be shared between friend agencies. That's a powerful tool for you agencies out there that are struggling and don't have the time to build an inspection form, but you know of a ER customer in your state, because these agency friends only work state to state in the same state. Get them to put you in as an agency friend and you can borrow the forms from them. It works out really slick. So that's what we would do. We would get their FDID number put in here, an agency name, so we know who we're talking about, give them access to what we want to give them access to. All these are optional. The really important ones I push are incidents and occupancy, and then you'll be able to share that data with them. Then let's go back to the page here. If an agency gives you access to calls, it'll be on this list. So I selected, by the way, in that incident report, a call from Troy Fire Department, but I don't have access to them. That's why it didn't pull in that data. So I've only got my home department that I retired from and a training account we have here in Ohio. And we have incidents and occupancy for that one and occupancy for this other one down here. So that's how the agency friends works on the setup. Again, they have to be ER customers, reach out in your community, and check to see who's an ER customer, or if anybody that's online with us today doesn't know and we can help you out with that, send me an email and I will get you a customer list for your county. And if you work directly with the departments in another county, send me the county names. And my email address is mark.wolf, that's mark.wolf @emergencyreporting.com. And request a customer list from us for your county, and I can send that to you. And then you can talk to them about getting set up as an agency friend. And again, you have to remember as well, agency friends only work within the same state that you're in, unless you're a Department of Defense account. If you're a DoD account, you have access through all the DoD accounts that we have worldwide for that. Another thing that we just recently did in the incident reports, I'm going to go back in here to show you. This was a question that we got quite often on the print page for incidents. At the bottom, you probably always saw that that they were titled, the two signature lines present on there to for member making a report and supervisor. We've removed the word supervisor and put in the word reviewer. So if I can get here, so now Jeffrey does not show up into your account. Specifically, what is not showing up in your account? And I've got somebody. Oh, thank you, Michael. Michael put my email address in the chat, so everybody should be able to pull that up out of there if you don't have it. Specifically, what does not show up in your account, Jeffrey, and I'll give you a hand with that. So when we go to the print page for an incident and we select to print this out, what we're talking about is and we come down here at the bottom. So it does say a member making a report, and then it says incident reviewer instead of supervisor now. And that was basically for some legal issues. So the subject matter before this one, Jeff, and you're going to have to get back with me on more detail there because I've been jumping around just a little bit. Okay, so that's a change, recent update. I'm going to move over to the reports module to show you something that has been commonly asked for quite some time now that we were able to update. And when we get to the reports module, we're going to talk about that. Now, a couple questions here. Stephen has asked another question, Stephen Fay. Let me try to get back to it. I believe Stephen, what Stephen is asking, so if you're both ER customers and you're both set up as agency friends sharing incident data, is it dynamic? So if what you have to do is they have to initiate their incident report. Then it'll pop up on that list on Basic Info 5 that you select from. Once you select it from there, then it's dynamic. As they're completing their report, it will display there. You may have to refresh that page if you're actually looking at it. But they have to initiate their report before it will show up on that page. And let me show you what I mean. I'm going to go back here let me see if I can get to it on this one. It's this one here. I was trying to get to the reports module, but okay, now we did get it unauthorized. So in other words, see if we can get this to link up. We've got some kind of issue going on, as you can see. When we go to Basic Info 5 and we have that list, and again, I'll have to go back to Basic Info 1 and set this to mutual aid. When I set this to automatic aid given, it changes that requirement on Basic Info 1. And what you'll have is on this list, this button right here, Stephen, as long as it populates on this list, it means they've initiated it, and then you can select it. It's got to be on this list before it becomes dynamic. They don't have to have their incident report reviewed, but it's got to be on this list, but the data you're pulling has to be in their report as well. So it may take them a little while to get that done. That's what I mean by that. Okay, so that's that. Let me go back over to, if I can here, I want to show you a really nice update we did in the reports module. Make sure we're getting everybody's questions here. Michael, that's your job out there to keep me square here where we're at with these. Okay, Jason, calendar and events will area we updated. Events is being worked on, and it was out there for beta testing, and we pulled it, and it's being worked on. And you should see that And the last word I had is hopefully by the end of this year, the events module will be updated. The calendar module, I'm not so sure where that is in the queue. I do know that that needs updating, and a few ideas that we hear quite frequently about that for repeating calendar items specifically, and also to have the ability to put in, have that match up with a calendar you have outside of ER, like Google Calendars or Outlook Calendar and stuff like that. We keep pushing that, but it's out of our hands as trainers to know when that's going to be developed, hopefully more sooner than later. So let me get back to what we're moving to now, and I'll get back to some of those other questions. So what we have in each one of these modules, when you now select the module you're going to for the reports, and let's say I want to go down to personnel reports here, and my contact list, for example, when we get to the list of reports, one of the things that we added was the report number prior to the title, and that's been something that folks have been asking for. So we went ahead and had some development time that they put some effort into on that. And the other thing that I will point out to everybody is that we now have a total of 670 reports pre-built available for you in the reports module. So that's number is 670 as of today. 2 reports were added with the recent update that was made yesterday. So let's jump back over here to Timothy. My basic info 5 page only shows EMS info and neighboring HEs evolved. Yeah, if you don't have an EMS only account, that's all you're going to see, I would suppose. I really haven't been in too many EMS only accounts to know any more than that. And Stephen is asking, so the aid providers must log their incidents before aid receivers, and that's correct. They do before you can log that in and pull their data into your call automatically through using that link button for agency friends. So my page just jumped on me. My incident page. Okay, Timothy, I don't have time to troubleshoot that with anybody today, but that doesn't sound right. What he's saying is the EMS module is in red even when the authorized and reviewed is locked. What we need to do, contact me and shoot me via email if you want to, your AID and the incident number for that, and I'll take a look at it. And you're welcome, Stephen. He's saying thank you for adding those report numbers out there. Just a few more things that we want to talk about before we conclude today, and that mostly it's going to be concerning our NEMSIS 3 product and a couple things surrounding those. One thing that I want to do, and I need to jump over to my other browser here and log in. Somehow or another, I hit the wrong button and logged out of my password keeper. We'll get right into here pretty quick. This account, if we have anybody out there that has a first PCR account, we're going to take a look in here. And one thing we want to show you for our first PCR account customers, we did add the ability to put patient forms in to the first PCR incident, patient care reports. So in this account, you see we have a couple of them displayed here that were created. And if I go back into my incidents module and show you, I've got to look under some people in here working today. So, and I had one in here and I cannot see it real quick. Here it is right there. Staring me right in the face. That's why I couldn't see it. So what I'm talking about is in your first PCR, when we're entering our data and you have forms now that are available under the signature forms and they're tied to this incident patient disposition, they'll pop up automatically. But you can see that none of these are required to be completed, however, but those forms are right here. So that is an addition. That's actually a big addition to these particular forms. So we've got our primary care provider on this one. And when we're done with that, we'll get a green check mark over here with it. So that was just recently added. Another feature that we've added earlier this year in the admin module, and I can have to go back over to this account, go to admin. This has to do with your patient billing for Nepsis 3 accounts. On the required fields and customizations page, we added down here all the way at the bottom is this checkbox in line. So if you check this box on the billing page in the PCR, there's a patient resides in area field, yes or no selection. That will require that if you check that box. And again, that's all the way at the bottom of the required fields and customizations page in your admin module. The last thing we got to talk about for the Virtual Thursday today is also concerning N3. And we're going to jump back over here to the incidents module in advanced search. Pardon me. And we've got a question from Brett.
I took care of that with Brett, Mark.
All right, perfect. He's got some questions on the daily roster. Maybe, we need to do a whole Virtual Thursday on a daily roster. Maybe we'll consider that. So we've added a few things down here on the EMS search option page. And this is kind of a thing that's kind of developing as we go along. This review requested has specifically been added. So if on your PCR, they request review on the one page here, and I'm having a brain block right now which page that's on, and you come in here, you can filter this by that and search for those reports that had a review requested. And you can also, for Nepsis 3 only, we've added incidents with PCR errors and our incident patient disposition that we can select different dispositions here on a pick list, just like that, to pull in. Those are recently added over so far this year. So with that, we have concluded all the items that we wanted to cover with everybody today. We'll give everybody just another moment or two to put in a question. Okay, Brett, is there a way to have the patient residence for fire only? So you have a Nepsis or NIFRS only account. You want to have a patient residency for that. Or, okay, so that is a perfect opportunity for the custom questions that you can build in your account. So that happens in admin, and that is under user-defined fields. You have to enable that in required fields and customizations by selecting the check mark on the top, and then you will go in and build your custom question or user-defined fields. So you would add a field, and I'm not going to type the whole thing out, but we would say, does patient reside in the district? Come up with answers, determine if you want to make it required or not, and save it. Then that'll be active in your incident report. And there are certain reports in the report module that will pull that data. And the keyword for that is you want to put in is the word custom and press enter. And it will bring up the various reports that have user-defined fields or custom questions on it. So that's it. There's a couple other reports that you'll see on this page as well. That's how to get all of them to have custom question on them. So hopefully, Brett, we asked or answered your question. So you can put that in a custom question. And if it's an issue with you, make it required to answer. You can put answers like yes, no, and NA. And that would help them out perhaps. But when you force them to answer that, you'll get better data off of it. So I hope we answered that question. If anybody else has any questions out there, go ahead and put them in and we'll respond to them. We'll give you a moment to do that. I want to thank everybody for attending today, and you guys hit us with some pretty intense questions there. We appreciate that. And seeing that we do not have any questions coming in, what we're going to do is go ahead and call it a day and put this into the record book. And again, thanks everybody for attending, and maybe we'll catch you on our next presentation in a couple weeks. Thank you.